You're live, Jason.
Hey, everybody, good to be back with you. Unfortunately, Chris Leadon couldn't make it today. She's got an appointment conflict, so I'm going to be handling your questions for the next hour live. You can just email at live@chastity.com or just click the link down below in the Discord server, and then you can either submit a question that way or you could even call in and we can chat. So for the next hour, we're going to be handling your questions on anything dating, relationships, vocations, parenting, marriage, church teachings on sexual ethics, same-sex attraction, same-sex marriage, contraception, pornography, you name it, let's go there. In the meantime, I want to thank all the pilgrims that came with me on the Wilderness Switzerland backpacking retreat. We just got back late last night after about a 24-hour journey back home, but it was just unbelievable. We flew into Lucerne, or into Zurich, drove over to Lucerne, did a boat ride out there on Lake Lucerne, then went over to our campsite, and we hiked three of the most epic and unbelievable mountain ranges in Switzerland. We had an awesome priest, Father Thomas Hunyer for the Diocese of Toledo, celebrating Mass for us up in the Swiss Alps, confessions for some on the way up the chairlift, the gondolas on top of these mountains, but just breathtaking photos. If you go over to our Instagram, Facebook, and X, you can check out the pictures there. And the ones we've got coming up next, canonization of Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati was supposed to happen, but Rome unfortunately just moved that to September, while we already got plans to go there for the initial date that they had proposed. And so unfortunately, he's not going to get canonized the day that we're out there, but we're still going to be taking, so far we have 70 people signed up for the Italy pilgrimage, and we might be able to get 5 more hotel rooms open. We're kind of waiting to see on that. But if you want to go, you can still go to jp2trails.com. We're going to be flying into Venice, doing some kayaking in Venice. Check out a couple of the mountain ranges in the Swiss Alps. Nothing too arduous for hiking. Over to Turin, St. John Bosco, Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati. Do one of the hikes he did. Take a fast train from Milan down to Rome, spend a couple days there, and then do the Youth Jubilee Mass with Pope Leo. And so if you're interested in doing that or joining your family coming down, jp2trails.com. And the next one after that, we just opened registration for to go to France, fly to Paris, drive to Lisieux, visit St. Therese, then go over to Mount Saint Michel for the Feast of St. Michael. We're going to hike barefoot across the bay through the mud over to there, spend the night at the Priory, then come down to Salem, which is apparently the best Gregorian chant in all of Europe. And we're going to live with the monks for a kind of a 2-day monastic retreat. So it's going to be some wilderness backpacking, some indoor accommodations, some outdoor. But if you're into the outdoors, want to do more of a contemplative French backpacking retreat with other young adults, just go to jp2trails.com and sign up on that one. Everything is provided for in terms of meals, accommodations, everything's covered in that one. So you don't have to bring MREs and eat freeze-dried meals for the week. We got you covered. JP2 Trails, come with us to Italy. Kristalina is going to be coming with me on both of those trips. So if you want to hike with us in France or Italy, see Pope Leo, or spend the night at a couple nights in a monastery in France, jp2trails.com, sign up, and we'll join you out there. So I know we've already got some calls that have come in and some emails. Josiah, you've got those. Do you want to dive on in and we'll see what we got today?
Yeah, I think the first thing I want to tackle,
Yeah.
real quick, if you guys want to call in, the Discord link's in the description as well. So I just want to put that out there. I know Jason mentioned the email, but if you want to call in and speak to Jason directly, the Discord link's in the description. And then you just join the stream stage and raise your hand.
And then we got a
Um,
Pacers game going on tonight too, right there, Josiah?
at 8:30, but we're
Okay.
second half team, so I'm not too worried about missing the first quarter
Okay.
tonight.
Sounds good.
If you
Halliburton
are
feeling
from
better?
Oklahoma and I find out, I will ban you tonight.
Yes, you will get shadow banned if you're an OKC fan, so don't even try.
Don't let me know.
Okay,
Yeah, just you don't have to mention it.
fair enough.
I think he's playing, but he is injured, so
Okay,
that is
bum deal.
disappointing, but it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah,
We'll be back next year. They underestimate the boys, so
yeah, apparently. Well, good
uh
luck tonight.
yeah, thank you. So the first question I wanted to tackle is also we've been publishing our favorite questions. I shouldn't say favorite because then people who don't get posted are going to be offended.
Yeah.
We've been posting questions that will be really good standalone videos on our YouTube channel. So if you have a particular question you thought was helpful, feel free to send that clip to your friends and family. That'd be super helpful to us.
Yeah.
But on one of those,
And in case someone didn't hear, you had explained last time, if you so much as copy the share
Yeah.
URL, YouTube will just automatically bump that up the algorithm. So feel
Yeah,
free to
YouTube
share or
assumes
just
you're
copy.
sharing it.
Yeah.
So if you're watching right now, click share and then click copy link. And you don't even have to send it to anybody. That helps us out so much. That's the
Yeah.
most helpful thing you can do for us. So,
Appreciate it. And don't forget to
um,
like and subscribe too.
yeah. Okay, actually, to our first question.
Yeah.
We published a clip about cohabitation before marriage and why you shouldn't do it, and the unacceptability of it. Somebody asked a really good question though. Uh, excuse me. Uh, what about right after you're married? Any tips for what to expect with that? Keep in mind, right after you get married, right, move in right after the wedding day, so you can set yourself up for success.
Yeah, and in terms of what to expect right after the marriage, there's this idea that you're going to be compatible. You'll take your focus test and you'll do your pre-Cana. You'll do all this discernment. You'll be compatible. Then you get married. But the word compatible actually comes from Latin compati, which means to suffer with. So lasting marriages are not because the couple is perfectly compatible. Lasting marriages is a result of the fact that you know how to deal with the inevitable incompatibilities that will come to the surface. And so a lot of people get a bit of a shell shock early in marriage when it's like, wait a minute, I thought it was going to be this endless, whirling, blissful, romantic, whatever. And the person snores, the person this, the person that. And, you got these bumps in the road. Exhale. Just breathe. It's going to be a little difficult, but that's fine. John Paul II said, love is a constant challenge thrown to us by God. And so maybe the early days and weeks of marriage is going to be just a cakewalk and everything you ever dreamed of. Maybe it's going to be a rude awakening and be like, wait, this is a lot harder than I ever anticipated it would be. Whatever the case may be, don't second guess yourself and thinking just because it's hard, I made the wrong choice. The crosses of the married life are hidden, but the joys are evident. And so when the crosses come, don't think I'm the only one, because one of the functions of marriage is to bring your faults to the surface so that they can get healed and purified. Because before you get married, you think you're quite a catch and you think you've got all the virtues, but a lot of that is because not much is demanded of us as single people. Honestly, for the most part, we come and go as we please. But then when we have to suddenly start living for another, really living for the other, really anticipating their needs and thinking about them, often it comes to the surface how bad we are at doing that. And so I just want to encourage you early on in marriage, try to do the best to anticipate the needs of the other. John Paul calls that tenderness. And we think of tenderness as mere physical affection, but he's talking about really understanding and anticipating the needs of the other, seeing the other person. This is ultimately what builds true intimacy. And so early on, just try to anticipate the person's needs, put them before yourself. And I think that's going to bear lasting fruit that's going to create some serious marital stability down the road. So don't be disturbed. Don't be heartbroken if marriage is tougher than you expect. Just grind through. If you ever start thinking, hey, the grass is greener on the other side, it's probably time to water your own grass.
Great stuff. An email question. To keep
Okay.
it short, I'm discerning a relationship with a girl at my parish who I've shown interest to, and she has to me. She's modest, amazing with children, pure, beautiful, and pretty much. The thing is, I'm deathly afraid of the fact that if we do date to get married, I'm going to be the one who will inevitably hurt her or make her cry and suffer one day for my own pride and anger. This leaves me dreading the thought of being responsible for the suffering of such a pure, innocent, lonely girl, leaving me wondering if I should even pursue her since that's what's best for her. And I don't think I would be that. Yeah.
Okay. I want you to start praying to St. Joseph. Remember, the angel appeared to St. Joseph and said, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife. Here you have a case of a man betrothed to the Immaculate Conception herself, okay? Way out of his league in the sense that, okay, this is the greatest woman ever created, not since just Eve, but ever. And you can understand Joseph's fear in taking her into the home, but the angel said, don't be afraid. John Paul II in his meditation on givenness. You probably haven't read that yet because a lot of people don't even know it exists, but we were able just to publish this thing for the first time. First ones to be able to print this thing in English. You can get it at chastity.com. I think we just got 2,000 back from the printer and they already went straight out the door, so we're on back order situation now. But get this thing because there's a specific section in that that book towards the end, and it's a short book, just 3,000 words, so it's maybe like 30 pages long. In there, he said, do not be afraid of your predilection towards her. Now, predilection is a special liking of something. And he's saying, don't be afraid of your special liking of this woman. As long as she remains ever an object of your respect, then you need to not be afraid to bring her into your home. The very presence of her innocence should inspire authentic masculinity in you. The very presence of her authentic femininity should make you rise up and realize, okay, maybe there is some selfishness in you that needs to get rooted out. But what greater motivation than to do it for the sake of love? Because if you're like, nope, she's too good for me, I'm not even going to bother, I'll just settle for a woman who deserves less than her. No, I mean, all women deserve the best. And the very fact that she is modest and she's pure and she's prayerful, let that draw virtue out of you. And so don't be afraid to take her into your own. Unless you really know, no, I got some serious issues that are going to be massively detrimental to this woman. If you do, go deal with that stuff. You know, if you need a good counselor, go find a good counselor. If you need a good spiritual director, if you've got vices, habits, addictions, or whatever that would absolutely be toxic to a future marriage, then not only is it not time to date her, it's not time to date anybody. It's time to get your house in order before inviting someone in there. But if you're working on those things and you're making progress and you're trying to be a man of prayer and you're just like, well, I'm just not worthy of her, maybe you're not. But maybe God is a generous God. And perhaps God is the one who wants to give her as a gift to you. And so don't be afraid to receive that gift. It might be in your benefit to do so. Because like I said, I don't think there's many things in the world that will draw out authentic masculinity like authentic femininity. You notice if a bunch of guys are around, let's say a religious sister, and she's clothed in the full habit, and she's just this prayerful, holy woman, they just stand up straighter. They kind of check their language. They kind of bring it up a couple notches because they're in the presence of just this really holy woman. And it's not only the nuns that are called to holiness. When you have single Catholic women that are women of prayer, women of purity, man, the bar gets set higher because a man will be as much of a gentlewoman as a woman requires. And if women don't require much, unfortunately, they don't get much. But when they set that bar high, a guy realizes, okay, I can either stay single and alone or I can step up my game to become deserving of a woman of virtue. And so step up your game. Don't be afraid. Take up a devotion to St. Joseph, who himself had to grapple with that question, listened to the angel, obeyed, and was made a much holier man for taking this holy woman into his house.
Awesome stuff. Also, talk to a priest about that if you're that worried about.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds like there could be some wounds or some.
Yeah.
Bring that.
There could be some authentic junk going on that needs to be scrubbed out, and there could be some self-loathing and scrupulosity that might need to get scrubbed out. So
that's what read with a little scrupulosity that might need to be spoken to a priest, and it's better safe than sorry for us to. So, email question here. It's in all bold and underlined. Don't do that. It's weird. I'm wondering what your take on helping our kids live in this world, but not of the world is. We attend Mass, pray as a family, regularly receive the sacraments, send our kids to Catholic school. Although, admittedly, in our Catholic school, don't live out their faith, so we're not convinced it's entirely helpful. We also have candid conversations about how we are asking them to live counterculturally, but it just sometimes feels so hard. Any other advice or words of wisdom?
Yeah, I mean, one is just, don't beat yourself up if faith isn't transferred to your kids like osmosis. A lot of parents think if I do this and do this and do this and do this, everything's going to turn out squeaky clean. I mean, St. Monica was a saint. I mean, St. Augustine just went off the rails. I mean, big time. Got his teenage girlfriend pregnant, didn't marry the girl. Monica was like, okay, we need to take you and the girlfriend and the baby, and we're going to bring him down to Rome, and we're going to baptize the baby. And Augustine's like, okay, whatever, I'll get the boat ready. Mom, why don't you hang out in that chapel up the hill there, and then I'll let you know when it's time for us to hop on the boat. And Monica's like, okay. She goes to the chapel. Augustine gets on the boat by himself, takes it to Rome, and hangs out with his friends, and literally leaves the unwed mother, the baby, at the dock, and the mom at a chapel waiting, and he just takes off to Rome. And they don't have cell phones, honey, could you come back and get me? Dude, he's just gone. What an absolute brat. But he became St. Augustine of Hippo. But it took quite a detour. I think it was like 17 years St. Monica had to pray for him. But, God had that path for him. I mean, you look, I think we mentioned last show, St. Therese of Lisieux was a saint. Her mom was a saint. Her dad was a saint. And her sister got kicked out of Catholic boarding school 3 times for behavioral problems. And so sometimes you have these like holy parents and the kid just doing, and it's not because they didn't do all the right things. It's just a mystery of free will. And sometimes it works in the opposite direction. I had mentioned before I read some saint in Liturgy of the Hours that the boy became a saint, but his mom worked at a brothel, literally ran a house of prostitution. That's what the boy's environment he was raised in, and he became a Catholic saint. It's like some parents do everything wrong and the kid comes out right. Some parents do everything right and the kid just comes out wrong. It's like, what the heck is going on? First off, this is why you shouldn't beat yourself up if like everything doesn't go perfectly according to your plans. Because I always say, look who the best parent in the universe is. It's the Heavenly Father. And now look at how messed up all of his kids are down here. Like, it's not because he's a defective dad. It's because his kids have free will. Ours do too. Some make great decisions, some not so great. I know of one family where their first child became a Catholic priest, and the second child transitioned to a female identity as a male. They raised the guys exactly the same, but they chose starkly different paths. And so if one does go off the road for quite a detour, I mean, you look at, what was it, Solomon? I think it was his kids in the Old Testament. Says, yeah, they were worthless men. And he had all the wisdom of Solomon, and the kids went off the deep end. And so don't beat yourself up. Perhaps God has given you this challenging child because God knew you were the one who would never give up in interceding for that child. If God's calling us to pray without ceasing, then one way he can get us to get those prayers without ceasing is by giving us a child who needs ceaseless prayer and intercession. And so you're probably already doing the stuff right, as you had mentioned. You're going to confession, hopefully as a family. I recommend go at least once a month if you can as a family, because it is potent for kids to see their parents in line for confession, because then the girls can see, oh, look, even mom needs to tell her mother, the church, she's sorry. Even dad needs to tell his father, the priest, they're sorry. It's not just something they get spoon-fed in religion class. They see it with their own eyes. And so if you're doing your best for family prayer, I remember the advice being given, try to make family prayer more of a hearth. And, a hearth is, a living room space that's just warm and inviting. It's real tempting as parents to be like, no, you will do your litany without, even exhaling incorrectly over the next 45 minutes of prayer. And if you do, then you're grounded for the rest of the night. And we try to get overly rigid. And that the problem is we're expecting a level of devotion in our children that we didn't even have as kids, that we perhaps only possess as adults. And we're expecting that level of devotion in our own little kids. And if they're not as orderly as we want, then we punish them. That could leave a real bad taste in their mouth when it comes to the interior life and family prayer. And so try to have structure, try to have order, but also try to have peace, to make it a place that's flexible, warm, inviting, loving, and you're probably already given the kids the resources they need, but just persevere in that prayer, persevere in that fasting, and trust your children to Our Lady, and just be at peace. If God gives you a difficult child, God's calling you to a different kind of prayer, and he knew that you will be the one who will never give up in interceding for that kid.
Awesome stuff. We got an email here from Julian. It was rather long.
Okay.
Try to keep your questions, guys, to about a paragraph maximum so we can read them on a stream.
Yeah.
But I had ChatGPT summarize this email,
Okay.
just so it'd get all the stuff in. So Julian, a 30-year-old man from Argentina, writes asking, he's currently in a relationship with a young woman who's experienced powerful conversion after traumatic past due to some sexual abuse. Julian expresses both deep love for her and a personal struggle. He feels burdened by intrusive thoughts and insecurities tied to her past, even though he loves her. He's seeking guidance and asking how he can overcome that knowledge of that past, and how he can discern without fear. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember John Paul II in his meditation on givenness talked about perhaps God has chosen you to be the one who reveals to her her inestimable goodness, that her value is something that you can reveal to her. And so if God is calling you into a relationship with this woman, or perhaps into marriage, you play a role in her healing process. And so realize that suffering that she's been through in that nature does not sound like it's something that she willed or that she chose, because, she didn't understand her worth. Somebody did something to her. And if we as men look down upon women because they've suffered through that of just like, oh, you're tainted goods, you're not innocent anymore, I don't know how I can bear this. I mean, that is pouring salt into those wounds, because they already suffer enough with the feelings of, I'm unlovable, I'm not worth protecting, I'm not to be cherished, I'm damaged goods, I'm like a chewed up piece of gum. Who would ever want me after everything that's ever happened to me? Even if there are good guys out there, why would they want a girl like me? Because if they found out what's been done to me, they wouldn't want me. They'd want to run away from me. These thoughts are swirling in the mind and the heart of a young woman who's gone through that type of abuse. And so I think we play a role of helping them understand, like, no, you actually didn't lose any innocence because of what happened to you. It was not a sin. You should never ask forgiveness for being sexually abused, because the abuser is the one who needs to ask forgiveness from God and from you. And so don't absorb any of that false shame from your abuser, thinking, well, if I had just listened to my family and I didn't put myself in that situation, if I didn't have that second drink, if I wasn't wearing that outfit, if I had just been more firm in telling him no, like, you go through all of these scenarios of ways that you could have avoided that abuse, and you torture yourself with that without even pausing to think, like, well, wait a minute, regardless of what I was wearing or what I was drinking or where I was at or whether I'd listened to my parents, and no matter how poor of decisions I made to get myself into a tough situation, it still didn't give any man on earth a right to do those things to me. And so when a woman is sexually abused in any way, could it be 1% her fault? Maybe 50-50, maybe 80% his fault, 20%. It's 0% her fault. Even if she made some poor choices, even if parents said, don't drink, don't go to that party, don't wear that. And she's like, I can do what I want. And then a bad thing happens. I don't think it's right for her to be given blame. I think it's right for her to be given unconditional love and encouragement to realize that no man has a right to do that to you. In fact, I remember a friend of mine once sharing that his wife, when she was in high school, was at this party, and she got just completely drunk. And then there's another guy that was drunk at the party, and he saw the girl, and he knew he could take advantage of her. And he's like, hey, you want to go inside, fool around? And the girl, like, okay, whatever. And together the two start stumbling into the house. And another guy was there at the party who was friends with the girl, who saw what was about to go down with this date rape. And he said, oh, not on my watch. So he goes inside, and he stands between the guy and the girl. And he knew what he was going to do. And the guy said, look, you are not going to do that with her tonight. You got to come through me first. And the drunk guy was so belligerent, whatever, just uncoordinated. I don't already deal with it. And he just he took off. So the guy was now left there, the friend of this girl, alone with this girl who anybody could have their way with because she was so out of her mind, intoxicated. And so the good friend laid her down on the couch, and then he slept on the floor at her feet that night. That if any guy would try to take advantage of her, you had to come through him first. Now, in the morning, I guess the girl sobered up a bit, and the guy made sure she got home safe. And years went by, and then this girl, had a beautiful conversion in her life and married a friend of mine. Now, eventually, she shared that story with her husband. And he always thought of this guy who protected his wife on that night and just thought, man, if I could ever just meet him one day. And one day, the wife had a high school reunion, and he got to meet this guy who showed up at the reunion. And you always envisioned them as this just big, hulking, manly man. But he was this scrawny little dude with a heart of a lion. And my friend just gave him a handshake and probably a hug and just thanked him. That night, the other guy was the pimp, he was the player, he was the predator. Well, this guy was the protector. And he just thanked him for honoring his wife's dignity when she couldn't do that herself. And so that's the role of an authentic man. St. John Paul II said, God has entrusted to every man the dignity of every woman. And so if you do struggle with intrusive thoughts of her past, I can't believe that happened to her. And is she going to compare me to those guys? Is she going to compare you to them? Yeah, favorably, realizing that you're a man who guards her innocence instead of seeking ways to wear down that innocence. And if thoughts come to mind and visual images of those things that had happened to her doing whatever, I just want you to stop. And I want you to just say a prayer and of thanksgiving that she's in a better place right now in her life. Pray for healing for her memories. Pray for conversion and justice for those guys who had done, or the guy who had done those things to her, or the girl who had done those things to her. Just stop and pray. don't start ruminating and let your imagination get away from you. And then that's going to do you no good. It's just going to create resentment and bitterness. That's a temptation that you need to renounce, you need to reject, and you need to stop, and you need to pray into that in that moment. And I think if you do, that will not only begin to heal her memories, it'll also begin to heal your perception of those events. Grace will start coming down from heaven through your intercession for the conversion of those guys as well. Because typically, if they do that to one person, it's often a string of other people that suffer the abuse at their hands until somebody stops them in their tracks. And so pray for justice, pray for conversion for them, pray for her healing, for her memories. And, as John Paul II said, perhaps you are the one that God has chosen to reveal to her her inestimable worth. And so take up that role. Again, don't be afraid. If those intrusive thoughts come, transform them into intercession, and you will be loving that woman more than any man has ever loved her in her life. And that will be a comparison that you can be proud of.
Great stuff. Next question. Can you recommend any books for me? I'm a single mother bringing up an 8-year-old boy. How can I help him grow to appreciate his purity in this world? His father and that side are not Catholic. What does the boy really need?
Yeah, 8-year-old boy. I've got an 8-year-old boy. One cool book, it's at chastity.com. I didn't write it. It's called The Squire and the Scroll. It's a really cool little story book about this kid who's got to go on this adventure and defeat a dragon. And it doesn't talk about like birds and bees and all that stuff, but it's an introductory treatment of purity and the battle for purity. And he's not going to put 2 and 2 together yet, but he's going to start to understand these principles of love and purity and sacrifice. So The Squire and the Scroll is a good book to read. Also, if you were to Google Theology of the Body books for kids, there's a lot of good stuff out there from Ruaw Woods is one publisher. Tobet Theology of the Body education team. Tobet is another one that has good theology of the body resources for young people. You can start to put in those building blocks. But then, if his dad's not a good influence in his life, that side of the family not so good, try to get him around good men, whether it's another good uncle, good youth minister, when the time comes, good priest, just authentic examples of masculinity. Because, books are helpful, but kids ultimately learn manhood from being in the presence of authentic men. And so the more that you can do to put him in the presence of men who are images of Christ, men who are images of God the Father, that is going to be an irreplaceable tool in terms of shaping his own concept of masculinity. I remember a single mom once telling me that when her dad had custody of their son, the dad would take the kid to car shows that had a lot of immodest women draped over the hoods of Mustangs or whatever in bikinis. And the kid would come back to the mom afterwards, and he was, kind of noticeably shaken up from just seeing that much content. And she's like, what do I do? Do we just pretend it never happened? And I said, you can't do that. This is a teachable moment. And, if you could talk to the father, great. I don't know how flexible he is about this being inappropriate. But if not, and you got to do some damage control, talk to your son about what did you feel in your heart when you saw that stuff? You kind of feel a little embarrassed for her that she's basically just wearing waterproof underwear in public in front of men who don't deserve to see that much of her because they haven't given her a wedding ring or their last name. And so what you can do when those memories of her come to mind, you can pray for her and, turn your eyes away when you see those kinds of things and just look into your heart and say a prayer for those people so you can teach him temptations are going to come. Immodest images are going to come. No matter what you do, this stuff is going to get thrown at you. Obviously, we can remove a lot of the temptations, but you can't remove all of them. And so when they happen, let's get a strategy together. Through intercession, through turning your eyes away, having custody of your eyes. And it doesn't mean that, you walk around completely just scared to death to even see women. There was an ancient band of Pharisees that ended up getting the name Kitsei. It's a Hebrew term meaning don't hit your head, because they would have their heads down constantly out of fear that they would actually see a woman and be tempted to lust. And so they would just never look at any of them. And you could help explain okay, maybe that's the beginning of purity for some. Like, my heart's just so impure, I can't look at anybody. But God wants us to get to the point where we can see beauty and even be pierced by it. Now, what does that look like? I remember having Bishop Eric Varden on the podcast a while back, and he told this great story that when he was a young priest, I think he was staying at a house of studies over in Rome, and an elderly priest came in the house and was just beaming and happy as can be. And the young Eric Varden, not even a priest at that point, I believe, said to the old priest, "Oh, look, Father, you look really happy." And the old priest was like, "Oh, I was just walking on the street and I just saw the most beautiful one you could imagine. And I just wanted to stop and applaud." And then he just walked on. And it was like, what a healthy response to see beauty and to let it pass through you like light through glass, to appreciate that beauty and move on with your day instead of just being torn with scrupulosity. "Oh my gosh, I saw an attractive woman. Did I just sin?" Or just seeing her and then looking 47 times at her and wanting to lust and to grasp. No, he saw beauty. He appreciated it for what it was, a revelation of the beauty of God, and it just brought him joy, and he moved on with his day. And so ultimately, we want to get to that point where when we see women, we just say, "Thank you, God, for making her beautiful. May she be holy as you are holy," and we move on with our life. And obviously, that's a journey. It's not something I just make the decision to do it and it's a piece of cake. Temptations are going to come, but try to coach your son and realizing what to do when tempting situations arise, and then form him with resources in theology of the body, and then the Tobit I'd mentioned, Ruah Woods, and then the Squire and the Scroll.
Great stuff, Jason. We got a suggestion
Okay.
from a fan to go look at questions people post on the Catholic dating subreddit
Okay.
for their dating advice segment. So I found a good one. I think we'll go with this one.
Okay.
Um, the this is a young man in his in his mid-30s.
Yep.
He's been seeing a woman. She's Catholic. Says after 3 months of fun dating, kissing, holding hands, going on fun events, being there for her, he's fallen for her a lot, so he asked her to be exclusive, and she said no, because she also was growing closer with a guy in her book study, apparently. And when he
Oh.
said that she'd have to make a decision, she just kind of said, "I know," and then the next day was texting him like nothing had happened, totally ignoring that the conversation the previous day had happened. So,
Yeah.
there you go.
Okay. I said, well, one of the things I would say is that you got ahead of yourself emotionally and physically in that relationship. The emotional part is hard to keep check on, right? Because you're probably having these engaging conversations with her. You're having dates. You're you're having fun. And your heart starts to get, "Hey, I think things are really moving in this direction." Okay, that's fine. But physically, you shouldn't be kissing a woman you're not dating. To go on a date with somebody is different than dating the person. And so I could understand how you feel a bit betrayed. It's like, wait a minute, we are intimate enough to kiss each other. Meanwhile, you're pursuing another guy, you're doing stuff with a guy, another emotionally. Like, what do your kisses mean? And some people say, "Kiss, what's the big deal, Jason?" I mean, people are just going to bed with everybody. They're hooking up on these apps and, sleeping together on the first date, and you're complaining about somebody kissing. Is it really that big of a deal? Yeah, it is. I mean, wouldn't you, shouldn't we come to a place where kissing is an infinitely big deal, that it really means so much? But the fact is, we're living in a world where more people hook up than even hold hands. And if we're ever going to get back to a place where the smallest of kisses is extremely meaningful, then we need to quit doling them out to people we're not even in a relationship with. And so I would challenge you that's one of the big missteps that happened, is you started expressing a level of physical intimacy that did not correspond with reality in that relationship. And so, if there even is kissing in a dating relationship, I think it should be simple, that deliberate sexual arousal belongs in the sacrament of marriage. Passionate kissing belongs in the sacrament of marriage. And people say, "Oh my gosh, that's so extreme." Not really, because if you think about it, what is the purpose of arousal? It's preparation for marital intimacy. But if marital intimacy is like 4 years away, like, what are we doing? We're essentially teasing ourselves with desires that cannot be morally satisfied outside of the sacrament of marriage. And so you'll find the more pure you are, the easier it is to be pure. The more you kind of sit on the fence, "Well, we won't do that, but we'll still do this," it becomes increasingly difficult because you're stirring up all these desires and then having to repeatedly slam on the brakes. And so I would say, yeah, you're right to feel a little bit frustrated and betrayed and led on by this girl if she was willing to be that close to you while secretly pursuing a similar relationship with somebody else. And so if you're just going on a date, but you're not dating, it is possible for people to go on dates with various people at the same time. But if you're going on numerous dates, 2, 3, 4 dates with somebody, I think that person has an obligation to inform you if they're going on 3, 4, 5, 6 dates with somebody else at the same time. To me, that's just common courtesy. Now, it used to be a little different back in the 30s, 40s, and 1950s, where people would go on a date every single weekend with different people. That was a different culture. Nowadays, it's hard to get a single date, let alone a string of 3 or 4 of them with the same person. And so when you are at that level of like a pattern of weekly dates or whatever, things seem to be heading in a particular trajectory. And so I apologize that she was not clear with you with regard to her pursuing whatever guy at the book study while she's busy kissing you. That's really misleading. I think it's unfortunate. I think it's unfair. And, I wish you the best, but I would say in the future, try to hold back more on the physical side of things and the emotional to the extent that you're able in order to make sure that she's on the same par with you. Because if she's kissing you, it's like saying with her body, like, yes, I wish to be intimate with you and you alone. And then the fact that she'd be running off with someone else and saying, no, I'm not interested in you, but thanks for the offer, pretty misleading. So I'm sorry. I know it's a little bit heartbreaking, but thanks be to God, this only happened after a couple dates and not 6 or 8 months into the relationship, and then find out she's been doing this on the side. So don't give up. I know there's a temptation right now to, some people just throw in the towel. I am so sick of these religious girls, and they acting like they're all holier than thou, but meanwhile they're doing this stuff on the side. Forget it. I'm just going to do whatever. Don't give up hope. There's still godly women out there, many of whom I meet on a weekly basis, just looking for a good, solid, holy Catholic guy that wants to get his vocation started. So they are out there. Please don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Don't give up hope on love, because if we give up hope on love, we're giving up hope on ourselves.
Great stuff. I guess my question, I would ask, I guess I would think a good follow-up then might be like, what do you think parents should have as their high school dating policy for their kids?
None. Don't date in high school. That's just what I would argue.
You would say
the happiest high school students I've met in the world, and I meet about 100,000 of them in a particular year. So total, probably about 2 million in person over the last 26 years of speaking. The happiest ones I've ever met are the ones who told me, Jason, I don't even see a point of dating in high school, because even if I do meet a great person, who cares? They're going to go to Thomas Aquinas next year, and I'm going to go to Franciscan University. What are we going to have? A long-distance 4-year relationship while they're in California and I'm in Ohio, and then they're going to get a job in Spokane and I'm going to get one in Jacksonville? Like, what's the point? Well, there really isn't that much of a point. Occasionally, long-distance relationships do work out, but it's pretty darn difficult. Long-term, long-distance friendships are pretty manageable. Long-term committed romantic relationships are a different story. Sometimes they can work out, but typically they usually don't. And to me, I remember a high school girl came up to me and said, Jason, you're right. You don't go to high school to find a husband. She said, you go to high school to find your bridesmaids. And I said, girl, you get the point to take your time. Take your time, find yourself, and then let love find you. And so high school to me is really a time of self-discovery, figuring out who the heck you are, what your passions are, your ambitions, what college you want to go to, your friends, your sports, your academics. Like, there's so many other things to be interested in. And oftentimes when we dive into this committed, emotionally charged romantic relationship, and we're like 15, 16 years old, everything else in life almost tends to atrophy around it. Like, so much intense attention is given to this. And then oftentimes when that couple, let's say things do work out and they get married, let's say early, sometimes, not always, but sometimes the girl gets a bit itchy in the sense of like, wait a minute, I never traveled Europe with my friends. I never finished my degree. I never even started a career. Everything was the boy, the boy, the boy, the boy, the boy. Now, sometimes that doesn't happen. And sometimes they're like, I know couples that got married at 18, 19, 20 years old that have now been married 20, 30 years, 10 kids, happy as can possibly be. Those things do happen typically to couples who mature a lot faster than the typical teenager. But I would say, take your time. You might feel like everybody's rushing ahead and dating and you're the one left behind in the pack, but think about it like crossing the road and there's a sign on the other side of the street with the orange hand saying, nope, don't cross yet. and everybody's running into traffic, getting plowed over by cars, and you're on the sidewalk still waiting, you're actually going to get to the other side of the street faster because you're going to wait till the sign shows the little white walk guy, and then you're going to walk on all these people that got ran over, and you're going to get to the other side of the street faster. That's kind of an analogy, like people who run into romance too early often end up in these heartbreak situations, and then you could get to college and realize, hey, my heart's kind of intact now, and I feel more mature, and I've seen, some pretty rough relationships with my friends, and I feel better able to navigate through the single years. In fact, I know a girl whose parents did not let her date in high school, and she had a fit about that. Mom, you're a Nazi. Meh, 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 meh. But then she got to college. She was hanging out with all her girlfriends in the dorm, and they were sharing all of their relationship drama from the past 4 years of high school, and she was just kind of sitting there listening, taking it all in. And she called up her parents, I guess, that night and said, Mom, can you get Dad on the phone? And they get on the phone, and she said, Mom, Dad, I just want to apologize that I know I gave you guys heck for not letting me date in high school, but now that I'm in college, I'm listening to my friends' relationship drama. They've been through the last 4 years of their life, and they've been through like 5 emotional divorces. And my heart is still in one piece, ready to be given to someone when I feel that I'm ready now in college. Thank you for holding that line, even though I know you gave you a hard time about it. And so she realized somewhat late that the purpose of dating is to find a spouse. Not because I'm bored and I'm lonely and everybody else has one, but it's a serious time of marital discernment. And to me, high school's a bit early to be doing that stuff. Even the first semester of high school or first semester of college, take a deep breath. Just get acclimated, get used to the homesickness, the new friends, the new situation, the academic schedule, and then maybe second semester, take your time and be open for a romantic relationship. But there's really no rush. The average American, I think, female marries, I think at the age of 29. Not that I'm advocating for that, but it just gives you a sense that like, hey, if we're rushing into romance at the age of 13, 14, 15, 16, could be a long go. The practicality of keeping a relationship chaste when marriage is still 6, 8, 10 years down the road, that's a lot to ask for. So take your time, find yourself, and like I said, then let love find you.
Some stuff. Somebody commented on our video about newborns and the newborn stage, asking if husbands still find their wives attractive after pregnancy, and said that this thought is what makes a lot of women scared of pregnancy.
Yeah. No, I mean, when I remember a friend of mine, he and his wife had not told anyone that they were pregnant yet, and they went to a very holy priest that we were friends with back in San Diego, who's since passed away. And this guy was like a little Padre Pio, and he saw them, and I forget exactly how he phrased it, but he was like, "Oh, God bless you and God bless the baby," and they're like, nobody even like what? Like nobody knows that we're pregnant except for us. And apparently now this woman had this new glow about her, that she was carrying around another soul, that she had another guardian angel apparently accompanying her, whatever it was. She had this glow about her. And so to me, my wife has gone through 8 pregnancies, and there's a beauty that a woman has in pregnancy that a man, to me, it makes the man want to step up his game of just reverence and gentleness towards her, knowing that the life of my child is inside this woman. I mean, this inconceivable mystery. I mean, as men, the idea that you got a human being inside of you, living off of you. And I think I had a bad day. And what did she do today? She like grew a nervous system and a digestive system. Like she's doing some serious work today, doing this amazing, mysterious, beautiful thing. And so for a guy, it's a natural progression of the maturation of your love. Yeah, maybe she doesn't look exactly like she did when she was 21 and single and you guys were dating, but it's a new form of beauty that you're introducing your husband to. And you might be thinking, well, no, I'm talking about after, the pregnancy, and there's scar tissue and there's stretch marks and my body doesn't look, the body is extraordinarily elastic in terms of its ability to go back. And so I would say if you're concerned, one thing you can do instead of just sitting on those insecurities, if you're physically able, go to the gym with your husband, and exercise. You don't have to do anything exceptionally rigorous or difficult or unhealthy, but take care of your body after the pregnancy instead of thinking, oh, it's just useless, whatever. What's the whole point of getting in shape after pregnancy? It's just going to, climb up this big mountain and then just get pushed down to the bottom again with the next pregnancy. Be healthy. It's not about being skinny and having a 6-pack or whatever, just about being healthy. And so take this as an opportunity to be healthy with her husband. Like, hey, let's do some meal planning together. Let's do some more walks together. Let's push the kid around the block in the stroller. I'll go hiking. I mean, we were in Switzerland hiking and we saw some couples, and each of them had a baby or like a 3-year-old strapped on a backpack, and they're like 7,000 feet up in the Alps hiking with us. It's like fitness was just part of their relationship. And it was just something that they were going to introduce their kids to by the way that they lived their own life, taking care, hopefully not just only their soul, but also their body. And so don't be afraid that you'll become less attractive to your husband through pregnancy. You're introducing to a new form of beauty. And then after the baby's born and enough time's passed and you kind of, get your wits about you and you're feeling healthier again, start working out with your husband and you can both get in shape. Because typically, woman's not the only one who tends to gain some weight during pregnancy. The guy often does too. And so maybe you guys can work out together and do some bonding that way. It's more of a journey. Because look, gravity's going to take its toll. We're all going to get wrinkly. And so we've just got to realize that level of attraction, if that's all that our relationship stood on, the weakness of the integrity of the structure of the relationship will be exposed. And so we've got to make sure that we have intimacy in other ways than just the physical attraction, the friendship, the spiritual intimacy, hopefully intellectual intimacy where you can, have, intellectually rigorous conversations. Try to kind of diversify the portfolio of your relationship so that not all the attraction needs to be physical, but in these other forms. But no, don't be afraid. I think there's a million ways for your husband to fall in love with you. And when a husband sees all that a wife goes through in pregnancy and the suffering and everything, he should have a new level of just esteem for the mystery, the heroism of a woman going through all this. So yeah, to me, that your reverence for your wife goes up, even if her body doesn't look the same way it did when she was 21. So don't be afraid to welcome that gift of life to your family.
Awesome. What do you think about prenups?
Don't get married if you're bothered doing that. I mean, the church will teach it's not even a valid marriage. If you need to do a prenuptial agreement, you do not have a valid sacramental marriage because there is no exit door. Zero. That is the whole concept of marriage. And the idea that you're signing a prenuptial agreement is basically saying there will be an exit door if things don't go well, and I got to make sure I keep my slice of the pie. Either you're giving her everything or you're giving her nothing. And people, it's imprudent financial advice. Okay, well, if your main focus in marriage is your financial, getting to keep your piece of the pie in case she uses you, maybe you're not that confident in your discernment abilities of a woman. Because typically, if you pick a good spouse, if you pick a good wife, I mean, I've often heard people say there's no better business decision than you could possibly make than choosing a supportive wife, one that is your cheerleader, one that is your best friend, one that's 100% loyal, one that can say, hey, look, honey, I understand if you can't get back from the office, you got to close that deal, go crush it. I mean, the very fact that you're making those sacrifices allows us to live the way that we are at home. I'll have dinner ready for when you get home an hour late. Like a wife that could be the cheerleader to you like that, to understand, no, he's not taking advantage of the family by just diving so much into the work that he's just like starving our family from his presence. He's just a hard worker, and I'm grateful for that. He's got his priorities straight. And if it were up to him, he wouldn't have to stay that extra outwork. But I got you, honey, go get him in the office. That will create so much financial growth in the family to have a wife who's your cheerleader as the one who's endlessly second guessing you. And so as long as you put her first, I think she's going to be the best cheerleader imaginable. But if you've got to go into this relationship thinking, no, got to do my prenup, because if she's not what I think she's going to be, then I got to at least make sure I got my part of the estate that I want. I'd say just don't even bother getting married. Like it's all or nothing. And so if you're not at a point where you can give her everything, then you should give her nothing and don't get married. Let her be available to someone who is willing to give her everything with no questions asked.
Can I interject something I've
Absolutely.
discovered that about learning this in dating? So I've not dated a ton, but since I've started doing what I do now full time, which is this, content creation back end stuff. You keep really weird hours sometimes, and I love it. I love every minute of it. But something that I really appreciate now that my girlfriend does is she's very understanding of that weird schedule. We don't live in the same town, so we only get to see each other on weekends, but occasionally there's like a Saturday morning where I need to finish something up, or, like she'll come out Friday and stay with a friend, and then I'm like working late on Friday, and she's understanding of that. And so I would just say to young guys, and when you're on this prenup thing, like there are ways you can tell in the dating relationship. Like if she's being so demanding and not understanding, especially when you're only supporting yourself or trying to support yourself so that you can set up for that marriage and she's not understanding of that, that is like a thing you need to be looking out for.
Yeah, and likewise, the girl is able to say, okay, is he taking advantage of how understanding I am? But if he's a good man, you don't want to do that. You're like, wow, I really appreciate how understanding she is of my work schedule. I want to reciprocate that. I want to make sure that I'm not taking advantage of her generosity and her understanding. And that makes me want to be with her more because of how understanding she is. So, hopefully this is not going to backfire on the woman to be generous with the guy's schedule, because I think most guys will see the sacrifice that she's making and being patient, and it'll just make you want to get out of that office faster so that you can get home to such an understanding partner. So yeah, but yeah, keep an eye out for these things beforehand. Is this person like my best cheerleader? Is this person my best friend? Are we able to do more together than we are separated? That's a good sign that it's going to be very fruitful, not just in terms of finance, but just emotional stability in that relationship. So the best indication of the future of a relationship is the past. And if the past is a lot of controlling and bickering and time management issues, that's probably only going to intensify over time. Whereas if you're seeing a lot of empathy and understanding and cheerleading and cheering you on, that they know what your dreams are and they want you to see your dreams succeed, that's going to make you, if you're worth your salt as a man, to really ask, well, honey, what's your dream? Like, where do you want to be in 5 years? Let's go dream together. Because once you get married, there's two ways to go about finances. You can sit there and go over the budget at the end of the month and bicker like, why did you buy that expensive toy? Well, you bought that thing. Well, I bought that. Instead of doing that, just step back and go create a dream board together. Like, where do we want to be 5-10 years from now financially as a family? Can we get on the same page? Yeah, I want to get a retirement set account, and I'd love to get a cabin, and I'd like to get this. And let's get a dream board together and say, okay, that's the end goal. We want to get there, and we're both in agreement. Now let's create a game plan financially that'll help us to reach that. Well, first we need to go after our debt together. Okay, what are some budget constraints that we can put into place that is going to be our top priority? We're going to get out of debt. And then once we get out of debt, then we're going to start investing in this, and then we're going to start doing that, and we're going to get to our goal. So that way, instead of just retroactively and reactively going after all these financial issues, you're creating an end goal and then trying to be a team to climb up to that mountain and experience the success of working together as a team. And so that's not something you wait until you get married to start those things. Those communication skills you should start to be developing as a dating couple.
Great stuff, Jason. So another comment from a video, it was the video we put out, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, on having a past and how to deal with the partner's past. And some advice you gave in that video was that women should ask men on the first date, are you looking at things on the internet you shouldn't be? And the username says Alexandra, so I assume this is a woman who's asking, basically saying that she thinks that men should be given the right to be asking women if they have a past as well. So I was wondering what your opinion on that would be.
Yeah, well, for one, let's make a distinction. The advice that was given in terms of the pornography use of the guy, to put that in context for those who didn't hear the question, it was that I met a young adult woman who got so frustrated because she'd go on dates with these guys and she met these guys, at the Catholic young adult group, and things are tracking real well. Then they get 3, 4, 5 dates in, and then it comes out that he's completely addicted to pornography. And so it got so frustrating for her that she started bringing up on the first date, okay, I need to know, do you look at porn or not? Because, if you do, I don't want to sit here and rehabilitate you. I don't want to sit here and be your accountability partner. I want you to deal with that stuff and then ask me out. And so she wasn't asking about their past. She was asking about their present. And so I don't think a guy has a right to know how many men or whatever a woman has ever been with in her past on their first date. What he has a right to know is her present, just like she has a right to know, where is he at presently? Is he currently harboring a serious sexual addiction to pornographic content? I'd like to know that kind of early on, instead of getting 5 months into the relationship and so, oh great, here we are. Now you need years of therapy and spiritual direction to get out of this hole you dug yourself into. do. No, it's not about knowing all their mistakes of the past. This girl wasn't asking, did you ever look at pornography in junior high? How about high school 8 years ago? She's not asking that. She's like, what's going on today? Where are you at with that thing? And so to me, that's a fair question to ask if you don't want to waste 6 months of your life before that gets disclosed in a relationship. And so, to be fair, I think it's very inappropriate for a guy or a girl on a first date to ask, how many people have you slept with? That's an intrusive and very private piece of information regarding somebody's past. Because let's say that they are not virgin, but let's say the virginity had been taken away from them. Do they really need to disclose that to you on a first date? I mean, heck no, you don't have a right to that information. Maybe if you've been dating 6 months and things are kind of tracking, towards engagement or whatever, and you want to start, sharing this information. Like when I met Kristalina, I was a virgin, and she's very open and sharing her testimony that she was not. But when we met, I didn't know that, nor did I ask about that. And we became friends, and we're friends for like a year, and then things started looking like they're headed towards a relationship. And so she came to visit me in San Diego. I'm like, hey, I got a chastity talk I got to do at a high school tomorrow down in Imperial Beach. Do you want to come with me and do the chastity talk? And maybe I'll do like 90%, and then maybe just 10%. You kind of share your story about chastity. And I didn't even know what her story about chastity was, other than that she was on board living it. And she was like, can I think about it and pray about it? I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, it talks tomorrow, kind of sorry for the short notice. And we were going into Eucharistic adoration. And she was like, well, what should I say tomorrow? And if I want to do this? And I'm like, well, talk to Jesus. He'll figure it out with you. So we go into adoration. Then we came out. And I remember her saying, Jason, I want to talk to you about something we haven't talked about yet. You know that I believe in chastity and that I practice chastity, but chastity wasn't always a part of my life. And then she shared with me how she lost her virginity, came from a broken family, made some really poor decisions where she was allowing guys to use her and she was using them. And then, a couple of years, these toxic relationships, and she decided, I am so done with this. This is not real love. And she had a big conversion, turned her life around, did a year of missionary work, and then I ended up meeting her after that. And her chastity had already been in place for several years before I met her. And so how inappropriate would it have been on our first date to be like, so how many guys you slept with? I need to know that. Whoa. I mean, that first date would have been our last date because that is too much information. There needs to be an appropriate development. It's like trying to open up a rose when it's just in the stage of a bud. Give it a little bit of time. That being said, I think I should have had a right to know on our first date if she had any serious current addictions that would be detrimental to a future marriage. That might be awkward to disclose, but I think a future partner deserves to know it earlier rather than later. But this is the key. Are we talking about a person's past or are we talking about a person's present? The present, I think you got a right to know that. Past, give it time, especially if the past is no longer present and change has taken place.
Good stuff. We are out of questions for tonight, and we got about 5 minutes left. So we've been on for about an hour, so I think we'll call it there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to invite people. You can, throughout the week, if you want, send in questions to live@chastity.com or just send them over on the Discord server, leave comments on the videos, and then we'll take that and use it for next week's show. So next week's show, Kristalina is going to be on with me live answering your questions for an hour. If you support us on Patreon, just go to patreon.com/Jason Evert. Anyone who asks a question on that platform, their question is going to be asked first. And any gifts that you make through the membership, $5 a month, $20 a month, or whatever, goes to support our family, goes to support this mission that we're doing and creating all these podcasts to spread the message of chastity. So if this has been a blessing to you, that's kind of a way to bless us back. Patreon.com/Jason Evert. And like we said, subscribe, share these videos. It's super helpful in getting us to spread this channel and show the content to more people than ever. Check out the resources at chastity.com, or if you want to go with us on our wilderness backpacking retreats or our pilgrimage to Italy or upcoming to France at the end of September, just go to jp2 trails.com and sign up there.
Great stuff. Everybody have a blessed week.
See you in a week.